Okay, so this video is going to cover modeling stairs in Revit. So to do that, I'm just going to set up just a really basic, simple scene so that you can see everything coming together. So this is just the default Revit scene. I'm going to drop a floor on my first level, just so we have something to build the stair up from. And then let's go up to level 2. And let's place a second floor. So architecture floor, and we'll do something like this to have that stair return up to. If we look at those in section, or let's just look at them in elevation for right now, we can see we're 10 feet floor to floor. Let's go ahead and change that to 12. It's a bit more realistic. And we will build from there. Okay, so in terms of setting up a staircase, you're going to find the tool under Architecture and Stair, and typically we start lower and work high. So one of the things that might be helpful in terms of building a staircase is seeing where we're going. So to pull the second floor underlay into the first floor, I don't have anything selected in my Revit scene that allows my properties to be set up for the view, and I'm going to go to Underlay and simply set level 2 as my underlay. And that gives me this edge to begin to work with so I know where my staircase is headed. There are multiple ways to do a stair. The way that I like to teach the most is more based around design thinking than it is efficiency or production. So let's start with the basic example, and that's sort of the default Revit stair. So if I click the stair tool and build a stair by the run method, I am simply going to do a left click once, a left click twice. I know that this stair is going from level 1 to level 2 with no offsets. And this is simply the default Revit stair. So I'm going to move this over so that the edge of the guardrail is at the edge of the floor above. And then I can green checkbox, and I'm actually going to have a stair that ends in the last step of death right here. So I know that I need to edit the boundary of level 2 to create this upper landing. At least my opinion is that's the easiest, sort of most efficient way to do something like that. So I'm going to split that line and trim to create a situation like that. Now, the default stairs actually have a code violating handrail, right? And it's even labeled as a handrail. So a handrail technically is something that is around that 36-inch mark above the tread, which is not to code. So I know right away I need to switch those from a handrail to a guardrail. And the one that probably looks the best as a default is going to be the guardrail pipe. And so you can see this gives me a handrail and a guardrail. So we're actually not breaking code anymore. Just in terms of the guardrail itself. And the pipe in general looks a little better. So let's switch that to a guardrail pipe. But now I still have multiple code violations in terms of this as a standard guardrail and handrail. Okay, there's no extension at the bottom, and again, when I get to the top of the steps, I'm falling off. And really, the stair, while it might meet code, is way too narrow. So we're going to get into fixing all of those things as well. But first, let's simply fix the guardrails, and then we'll get a little bit into how I would rather see you as a designer use the stair tool. Okay, so in my level 1 plan view, I'm going to select the guardrail and I'm going to click Edit Path. Now this gets a little bit tricky, but if you know code, you should all know the basics about code, you know that the guardrail is going to extend at its slope the length of one tread at least the minimum of 1 tread at its current slope. So I usually treat that as 12 inches because, well, frankly, this is a 7-11 stair. That's the default stair. It's a miserable stair to walk up anyway. A 612 is a much easier, much smoother stair to walk up. We'll adjust that here in just a minute. So I've simply created a 1-foot extension and a guideline coming over so that I can select this guard and bring it 1 foot out. So this is that common line that is sloping. It is hosted by the stair, so I know that that is sloping. Then they need a 1 foot flat extension after that. So you can just draw an additional line 1 foot away. So I have this, which is simply going to be hosted on level 1, and this, which is hosted by the stair. I'm going to delete my guides, and now when I green checkbox that, if I look at what's happened in 3D, I have a guardrail here at the bottom that is now meeting codes, and I need to repeat that process for this side. So let's do the same thing up here to create a continuous handrail guardrail around this, so I don't have, a really bad situation here with an exposed level. So I'm just going to go to my level 2. I'm going to select that guardrail again and say edit path. And in this case, the slope does not continue, so I simply want this guardrail to be hosted by level 2. And I'm just going to draw this the rest of the way across. Simple as that. Looks like I need to nudge that line over just a bit. So when I have this line extending across, hosted on level 2, I should see something like that. And then again, I need to repeat this process coming around. Technically speaking, this doesn't necessarily need to have this handrail across, but it still needs to be at a guardrail height. Okay, so I could draw that as something separate. An important thing to note with these guardrails, they cannot have gaps in them. So anytime I have a gap like this, Revit can't resolve that in terms of building a model. So those have to be continuous lines. Let's undo, green box, check. Cool. So that's basically working with the defaults. So let's lose the defaults now because the defaults aren't that great. And let's at the very least treat this as a different slope on the stair. So I'm going to go back to level 1 and the stair tool, and this time rather than a 711, let's turn this into a 612. So I'm going to go edit type and duplicate because this is a brand new stair family that I'm creating. So I'm going to call this a 612. 3 foot is a miserable width for a stair. It's just wide enough to make you think you can walk past somebody, just narrow enough so that when you meet somebody on a stair, you really don't fit past each other, at least not with any level of comfort, right? So let's set this to at least 5 feet wide, my minimum riser height of 6 inches, my tread depth of 1 foot, much more comfortable stair all the way around, okay? You can get into exploring all of these defaults or all of these settings in terms of what the supports are like, everything else working with the stair as you get more advanced. But really, these are the key things to work with when you're learning to build a stair. Okay, so 612 stair, I've got that set up. I'm simply going to build this out sort of in open space. And then I'm going to select my edge or select the entire stair and the move tool. And let's move this into the correct location. Checkbox, back to level 2, and let's edit that floor. So we now have a much more comfortable stair with the guardrails. I'm not wild about the vertical pickets. Call it what it is. Just not wild about them. I looked at them too long, I think. And something like that happening. Much more comfortable stair, better width, better design. Everything's looking much nicer. Let's actually make this a little bit wider as well. So I would go back through and apply on the last part of this process as well, that I showed extending this out and extending this over to make that work. Just as a quick note, pairing with the stair tool is the handrailing tool. So if I wanted to add this as a separate handrail, I could always come in and say handrail tool, guardrail pipe. I know that this is hosted on level 2, and I can simply draw this in. And I don't necessarily have to do that as an extension off the stair. Sometimes it's a lot easier to manage these pieces as individual components, right? Rather than trying to have these great big strings. And by the same token that I say that, let's nudge that over just so that starts to work. By the same token, as working with all of these elements, if I have a stair that's going to do a cutback, so in other words, it's going to come up and have a landing, a lot of times I would rather build that as 2 separate pieces rather than one continuous stair. So let's look at both of those pieces here as well. So if I go to level 2, or back to level 1, excuse me, I'm going to go architecture stair. I'm modeling by a run. I'm still on my 612 family. I can just build this out. So let's do half of the treads, or half of the risers, excuse me. So I can see that right below the stair in this case, I can see that I've created 12 risers and I have 12 remaining. So I can click that, and then I can come right to the side and build the remainder, and it will build that U-shaped stair for me, right? So if I green checkbox this and look at it 3D, I have that stair set up. So again, I can delete this. I'm going to go to level 2, and let's move this piece into place. I need to select the stair to move that. So let's move this piece to, let's say, right about here. And let's again edit that floor. So that all those pieces line up fairly gracefully. Okay, so I've got something like that, all done sort of with the default stair method. Okay, so the other way that I would build something like this, that I often like to do, is build the stair in 2 pieces. So 1 and 2. So to do something like that, the first thing that I need to do is look at this in terms of an elevation. So I'm going to select my level 2, and I'm just going to copy that down 6 feet. And I'm not going to label this level 3. This is going to be landing 1A. Okay, so on my level 1 floor plan, I can start a stair and have it go from level 1 to landing 1A. And this is going to allow me to build a stair that goes halfway up. I can finish it and edit it exactly where I need it to be. And then I can go level 2. And in this case, I'm going to have the stair go not from level 2, but from level 1A to level 2. So I'm kind of drawing it top down. Same trick. I'm just going to draw that, checkbox it, selecting it, and then moving it into place. So I've got the 2 stairs working, but I don't have a landing. Okay, so in this case, I would go to, again, level 2 is probably the easiest place to draw this from. I'm going to do a floor. I'm not going to do the generic 12-inch. That would be a massively thick sort of landing for a stair. So let's just make a new floor type. Duplicate, let's call it landing 2-inch. I'm going to edit the structure and just make this a 2-inch thick floor. So then I can just build this as a very quick box, going edge to edge. And I'll build this as, so essentially this is just coming together as a landing for this U-shaped stair. That's enormous. I don't need it to be that big. By code, I believe that's a 5-foot wide stair. It would need to be a 5-foot deep landing. So I now have that. Oh, I built that entirely on the wrong spot. Imagine that. I wasn't paying attention. So that should be on level 2. That needs to be on landing 1A. Simple enough fix. I'm going to select this guardrail. I'm going to edit its path. And again, easiest spot to view that from is level 2. And I can just draw my extension. I need to turn on chain. That will actually help make that a little bit easier. That's just simply going to string my lines together end to end each time I draw one. Giving me that. Now, Revit doesn't always do, and I think there's some more advanced tools that start to connect some of these pieces together and connect these pieces together. Frankly, what I teach my students in architecture school currently is that's a detail for right now, not to get too absolved in or just too worried about in terms of building your architectural model. Those are usually things that in the profession currently we handle by building a specific construction drawing for, and we'll do that in 2D as a construction detail. I think we're getting there in terms of modeling those things really accurately, but right now those things and like this sort of discontinuity right here with the guardrail and handrail, again, that's breaking code. Just make sure you go back and you detail how you want those joints to happen. It's just one of those things I wouldn't encourage you, especially in architecture school, spending a day resolving those kind of details. Okay, step back and think bigger picture. Make sure you have a guardrail, the little joints and gaps, bigger concerns right now for where you're at as a second-year architecture student. Okay. Okay, so next thing is working with the custom stair layout. So if I have a stair that I need to do something different, and this is my preferred method of doing the stairs, okay? So I'm going to go stair, and this time, rather than by run, I'm going to do a stair by sketch. So this lets me put in 2 edges as a boundary. So again, let's go back one step before I get too far here. I'm going to set this as a stair from level 1 to level 2 first, okay? Then let's do stair by sketch method. So this gives me the opportunity to draw both the boundaries and the risers, okay? So in this case, I would be doing a boundary. Notice I'm not creating any risers, so it still says I have 24 remaining. So I have that, and then I can start making more custom shapes with these, right? In fact, I can really make any shape that I want. And maybe that's not a good thing, but I can. Okay, so I've got 2 edges here, and now I can come in with a riser. So it's saying I've got 1 riser created. I'm making a 612 stair, so for every line that I draw, that is going to give me another 6 inches of rise. So at this point, I can do offset by 1 foot, and you can see it's going to start ticking these down, 2 risers created, so on and so forth. At some point, it's a lot more efficient to copy rather than continue to offset. I've got 3 more risers remaining. Should be down to one riser remaining. Blammo. Okay, so I have my risers and I have my boundary lines. I don't really even need to be too neat with this. Revit will resolve all that for me. I mean, if I want to be anal retentive about this, I can bring all those things over, but Revit usually does a really good job of resolving those kind of details for me. So I've got this stair with a curved edge. I could go to the trouble of actually bringing each step and running it perpendicular to that arc if I wanted to. This would continue to sort of build a stair that does multiple things for me. But when I check this, I get that kind of stair as a form. Cool. Now, one of the things you'll notice is I did not get a handrail on this yet. When I finish that, it should provide one. which is cool. But let's say I'm not happy with any of these guardrails because that's really not the most elegant solution to a stair that's doing something like that. Let's say that I want this to just be a solid guardrail. There are a couple of different methods to do it. The preferred method for me is simply to use the wall tool. I'm just going to delete that side. I'm going to look at this from above in level 2, and I'm going to build a 4-inch thick wall, which I don't think that there is one by default. So let's just do, edit type, duplicate, and let's just call this guard wall. I'm going to edit the structure. So the structure is 4 inches thick, and say OK. So from here, I just want to draw not by the center line, but by finished face of the wall. So I'm just going to select that edge. I'm just going to do a wall right through here. Again, I know that I need a 1-foot extension at the top as a minimum. And I know that I need a 2-foot extension at the bottom as a minimum. Cool. So I have something like that, which looks completely ridiculous, right? But what I can do with this now is I can select, and I'm not sure why I built that as. I think I can just join it together like that. There we go. No. Ugh. Sorry. Let's extend this out. So I'm going to draw a little guideline here, 2 feet out, 1 foot over. Because essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to use edit profile to shape this wall. I could also use hosting, some things like that. This method is just easier to me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this wall, and I'm going to edit its profile. I'm going to select the bottom of the carriage as the base of the profile, the floor. Then I know that this was set at the right distance out from the last stair. I know that my height here to here, I need to be up from this height right here at least 42 inches. So let's just type that in, 0.42. And then I'm going to copy this line up. And I'm going to offset from the floor another 0.42 to trim this to that to create my slope on that edge. I can unjoin those elements. I can trim this to that for the base of the stair. I want to connect this line to this line. And then I'm going to offset again 42 inches up for my vertical. And finish off by trimming those. Okay, so if you look at that as a profile, right there, that is now going to create a wall for me. Uh-oh, missed one up someplace. Continue, where's it at? Oh, it's way up there. So what happened there, I have an extra line on my profile. So I'm going to continue, get rid of that line. This is going to build that profile for me using a wall as a guardrail. Much more elegant, much nicer solution, in my opinion, in terms of how that looks. Now I could build another object right in here to act as my handrail. You know, so this is a guardrail, it keeps you from dying by falling over the top. The handrail is actually what you grasp, which is located about 36 inches above the nose of each tread. Again, architecture school, this is enough. Do this for me, I'm a happy person. Cool, so that's multiple ways of building a stair and editing them, multiple ways of working through the guardrails, and a little bit of code that you probably didn't even want at this point, but is super relevant in terms of understanding how to build these things correctly.